And concern is growing over Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa after he suffered another concussion on the field.
The tragedy of Tua Tagovailoa. It took less than 2 Sundays for fans to be reminded just how gruesome this beautiful game can be. In 2 seasons, Tua had 3 concussions, the latest leading to many calling for his retirement. But before and between these injuries, the NFL made several advancements in concussion protocol. The biggest no-brainer in NFL safety are the helmets. With the increase of physicality in the league and pressure to make the game entertaining, the league has made some wild adjustments.
The headgear that's being worn this season.
A new look headgear
were mandated for certain position players
to help cut down on traumatic head injuries.
It's supposed to protect us.
A safer man, but definitely been good.
I'm always open to change.
To lower the impact.
To lessen the force that is applied to the skull.
I don't want to ever suffer from concussion or things like that.
There's life after football.
We don't need those shots to the head.
2 years or a year and a half from now, everybody's going to be wearing a helmet.
The fans expect a modern gladiator sport that embraces its violent tendencies. The players want protection and priority, and the league wants money. All of these things were taken into account with the league's latest innovation, the Guardian Cap. The benefits of these helmets, while scientifically strong, haven't felt practical enough for players to actually wear them during games. Fans are victim blaming Tua. Why didn't he slide before he met Damar Hamlin? But if you're going to ask a question, it should be this one. Why wasn't Tua Tagovailoa wearing the Guardian Cap? And why hasn't the NFL been more aggressive about implementing it, especially for players who have a history of concussions? It's time for you to learn the truth about NFL helmets. I'm Josh Silverstein, and this is Clutch Call. Whether you love it or hate it, you have to realize just how much the helmets we see colliding every Sunday have changed over the last 150 years. The first American football game had very different rules. On November 6, 1869, Rutgers and Princeton faced off in a game with no helmets. And as the game progressed, so did its physicality. It led to a brutal game between Harvard and Yale in 1894 that left 5 players hospitalized. So, the first football helmet was built. A cobbler designed a helmet that was a leather cap. Then, 1900 marked the first built-up helmet, this head harness. These gained popularity across the sport, but another hiccup led to more changes. Not only were players getting injured, they were dying. In 1904, there were 18 deaths from fractured skulls during football play, so changes were made. The flat-top helmet was introduced in 1910, and then headgear became more famous in the 1920s. This look was known as the Leatherhead era, even getting its own publicity through the 2000 George Clooney film Leatherheads. The beefed-up sponge crown gave players their first real protection against concussions. Then, the 1930s marked a significant technology upgrade because a new rule changed everything. In 1934, NFL teams wore this, with the first real tech we've seen in NFL headwear. It used what was known as fiber shell technology. This was needed because in 1939, college made helmets mandatory and the NFL followed just 4 years later. But during this time emerged a brand new helmet that would set up the rest of the century. The football heads may be familiar with this name, the plastic helmet, designed by John T. Riddle. His design introduced not only the hard outer shell, but also the inner lining suspension system that significantly helped with head contact after impact. But there was one major issue. World War II was going on, and due to the shortage of plastic, this head design saw its first action on the battlefield, and eventually it came back to the gridiron. This is when face masks were introduced. After Fred Garricky broke his nose 3 times in 1946, he decided to take measures into his own hands. It was a clay-molded mask attached by aluminum. But what's protection without making a fashion statement? With the development of plastic helmets in full swing by the late 1940s, Fred Garricky was playing halfback for the Cleveland Rams when he came up with the very first helmet logo design. He painted ram horns on the entire roster's helmets in the summer of 1948. Then face masks and chin straps were added with logos under the design of Riddle. The 60s face mask may look familiar. These 3-bar designs were worn across the league by 1962. But players were getting more dangerous on the field with the development of these high-tech helmets. On August 12, 1978, Darryl Stingley was hit so badly by Oakland's Jack Tatum, he became a quadriplegic due to a shattered vertebrae, forever altering the perception of safety in the NFL. So in the 80s, the league had to upgrade its tech. The lightest helmet was 3 pounds. Visors were introduced. Then the 90s tried something completely different. In 1994, the first radio helmet was introduced, an idea that was nearly 40 years in the making, allowing quarterbacks to communicate with coaches on the sideline. The turn of the century shaped the NFL of today. In 2002, the famous Riddle Revolution, Revo, was introduced, was released and used by the biggest names in the sport. Since then, helmets have only gotten more technologically sound, and it wasn't until the end of the 2010s and beginning of the 2020s when more major changes arrived. In 2019, the NFL partnered with the first company to create an NFL-specific visor, ending the decade-long league ban on visors. And no other company was better for that than the famous eyewear company, Oakley. So in 2021, Visus introduced position-specific helmets that are used by the likes of Patrick Mahomes, George Kittle, and more. And this brings us back to the Guardian Cap. They debuted in training camps in 2022, but these spongy mushroom tops were deemed not cool enough, despite bringing a 50% reduction in concussions and 10 to 20% reduction on force to the head. By 2024, Riddle introduced the Axiom 3D exclusively for NFL players. These are the highest ranked helmets by testing performance. And in 2024, Guardian Caps were officially allowed in games during the season. In Week 1, 6 players wore the Guardian Cap. Then, Tua suffered his third concussion on the Thursday night game at the start of Week 2. And despite the entire world witnessing that tragedy, only 7 players wore the Guardian Cap in Week 2. The numbers don't lie. Helmet updates and Guardian Caps maintain health, but still remain not required. Imagine if they were before Tua Tagovailoa went down. Over the last 150 years, the league has mandated every advancement in helmet technology. At one point, there were no helmets. Then they mandated them. There were no face masks. Then they mandated them. Every technological advancement through 2020, mandated. So stopping at the NFL's best helmet innovation feels reckless. Guardian Caps are mandated during the preseason. Why not just give them the extra tush-push into the rest of the season? As players get faster and stronger, it's on the NFL to create a safety mandate that lines up with the latest technology. It's time the league makes a clutch call on Guardian Caps.